Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Welcome to my final video of 2023. This is going to be the 12 top moments of the year. I'm going to feature some of the cards that go with those videos and memories as I discuss each and every one. I'm also going to capture some of my hobby goals going into 2024, but I wanted to at least take the opportunity to thank everybody that's taken the opportunity to watch this channel this past year, whether it be through recorded videos, shorts, or even the live streams that we've been able to do over the course of the year. I really appreciate being able to have the opportunity to put those out there for the community, people commenting on them, people reaching out individually as needed to with questions and comments. It's all greatly appreciated. And I hope to have another great year with the community too and putting content out there. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the camera around and we're going to go through the top 12 moments of the year. I hope you guys enjoy. Hey, we're going to start off with my moment number 12, and that was actually picking up a card that was a target card of mine during my childhood. As I mentioned when I previously showed this card, Cal Ripken Jr. was my favorite player growing up. I'm trying to move this where you don't see a reflection of me or the fan above me. And, you know, this is a card I never obtained when I was a child. And I, at some point, wanted to be able to acquire it and during my adulthood, and really didn't do it until just the beginning of this year. And this is the 82 Topps Traded Cal Ripken card in a PSA 7, which is totally fine by me. I'm happy to be able to pick this one up and add it into my collection, and I would say that is the 12th moment of the year for me. So I hope you guys enjoyed that one. Let's move on to number 11. For my number 11th moment of the year, I would say that this might feel a little bit cliche, but this was really the first year I really started acquiring 1952 Topps cards. First started with a card show back in February where I was able to pick up the Shane Dees, Mize, and Kozlowski that you see pictured here. And I later got them graded, which I'll talk about later on. But through this process, I really started to fall in love with the set, which was not a set that I had previously had a lot of admiration for. I was never opposed to 52, but I just thought like everybody was after 52 Topps cards. And I thought some of the other top sets of that era looked a little bit better, but the more time I spent with these cards, I've definitely come full circle on this, and I'm totally on board with them. And I look forward to be able to kind of pick up more of these cards into the future. So it's not on the list of my goals for the coming year per se as a target, but I'm certainly not going to be opposed to trying to knock off and pick up a few 52 Topps cards that I may see at shows and later get them graded, or if they're part of a larger purchase for something else I need. I'm definitely going to try and go after these, and these are just some of the highlights that I've been able to acquire during this past year that you see here before you. So yeah, so that was number 11. We'll be on to number 10 here in a second. So during the course of the year, I ended up acquiring a large number of 1964 Topps Giants cards right at the beginning of the year. I think it may have even been New Year's Eve of last year where I purchased these cards off of Facebook and had them delivered shortly thereafter. And at that point, I was all in on trying to put together the 1964 Topps Giants set. During the course of the year, I was actually able to complete it. This past fall, I think, was when I picked up the last item I needed for the set. And here's just some of the cards that are kind of featured that I picked up along the way here, some of which are in graded condition. I'll show a few more later on. But obviously, I'm really happy picking up the Sandy Koufax back in the corner there. I was able to get an autographed Jim Bunning and also Hank Aaron. Just really cool set that is very easy to complete for collectors out there. And I kind of highly recommend people to kind of take the time to reconsider it if it's not a set that you have had a chance to look at before. And even just kind of picking up some of the key cards of some of your favorite players can be a lot of fun, and you can acquire most of them at a pretty good affordable price, with the exception of the few short prints that are in the set, which will cost you a little bit more, but even still, they're just great pictures. You have these close-ups of these players, and I think they're just beautiful cards. Happy to have this set completed, and that is my 10th moment of 2023. This past summer was my first opportunity to do a VR contest for the community. I just recently reached 200 subscribers, and I wanted to be able to, once I reached that number, I introduced a contest based on what's your sort of favorite chase card, if you will, in your collection, one that you've taken, it's taken you several years to be able to acquire, like this one did for me, which is the Ichiro Suzuki card from the 2001 Topps Gold Parallel set. And this was a card that I had coveted in some way, shape, or form since it came out in 2001, but this was the year I was able to finally acquire it. And I wanted to kind of hear some of those stories from the community, so I had a great opportunity to be able to kind of listen to and watch many videos from many of you. And this was also like an opportunity for me to get to know many of you too, through new subscribers and those reaching out through comments. So thank you all who participated. And I'm looking forward to be able to do another contest for this coming year, maybe when I reach 400 subscribers. So I'm about 60 some away from that. And I'll start thinking about what the giveaways might be for that. So thank you again for the community, for those who all participated. And that was moment number 9 of the year, was the 200 subscriber contest. So going into 2023, there is one vintage player run that I'm currently actively working on, and that is my father's favorite baseball player from that era, which was his childhood, which is Stan Musial. So the card that I had on my list to be able to acquire for this year was the 1952 Bowman Stan Musial card that you see here before you, which I picked up at the March Chicago Sports Spectacular. It's a 1 because it's got a good little crease across the card. But I was actually okay with it because there's really, other than maybe the centering, there's no other real noticeable imperfections on the card. The crease is noticeable, so you can't miss it, but it was able to get it at a fairly reasonable price because of actually that. So it kind of all fit for me to be able to acquire this. And this actually kind of brings me to a couple goals that I have for the year. This is actually like on my list of goals 7 and 6. As I would like to be able to acquire the 49 Bowman Stan Musial at some point this year. And I'm still kind of chasing for a good price on a Redman Musial with the tab. Not without the tab, but with the tab, to be able to kind of add into my collection for this coming year. And they are on my list to be able to kind of pick that up. And hopefully, actually, I might get more than just one Musial on my list this year, which I'll talk about maybe a little bit later as we kind of go into one of the other highlights. So that was my, I believe, the 9th highlight of the year, if I'm not mistaken, or the 8th actually highlight of the year was picking up this 1952 Bowman Stan Musial. My number 7th moment of the year is the Diamond Star Story series that I really got into. I started a little bit of doing it towards the end of last year, but now I've been doing it pretty habitually, doing 1 episode a month. Sometimes I feature more than 1 players, and here's some cards that were actually featured during this past year in players. Obviously, I was very happy to be able to acquire the Luke Appling. It had been on my want list for a while, even before I wanted to be able to put this set together. But like the Wick Farrell story was very interesting putting together, and this was like my highest graded card in my set, and I was able to pick it up during the Chicago Sports Spectacular back in March as well as part of a larger purchase. I just think these cards are beautiful. I've enjoyed learning about these individuals in this era of baseball in the 1930s, and I hope that other people have been inspired just kind of listening to some of their stories as I've kind of been able to create each and every episode over the course of the last year. And I'm looking forward to doing more, and I'm going to be looking forward to be able to pick up more cards for this set, which actually brings me, it's going to be jumping around a little bit on my goals in the order of which, but my second goal for the year on there is actually to be able to try and at least acquire at least 15 more cards for the set. I have 35 unique cards. I think getting up to 50 would be a good number by the end of the year. And that obviously puts me more than half completed with the set. So at least if you don't include the super expensive high numbers that are also repeated players within the set. So that is my number 7th highlight of the year. All right, so my number 6 moment of the year was taking the opportunity to actually meet these ball players and obtain their autographs during the Chicago Sports Spectaculars in March and in November here in Chicago. So obviously I've kind of chronicled those in my videos and the show recaps of what it was like being able to meet both of these individuals. So it was just a really fun experience being able to meet these great players that are now up in their 80s. And I hope to, during the course of the year, it's not a set goal, but as opportunities do present themselves, I want to be able to try and get a couple more players that played during the 60s and 70s, some of those autographs, because obviously those guys are not going to be around forever. And I want to be able to kind of at least capture some of that as best I can. And I enjoy doing it in person very much so. So those are my number 6 moment of the year, was meeting Billy Williams and Jim Cott. All right, so my number 5th highlight of the year is actually, this was the very first year that I submitted anything for grading. I jumped at the opportunity at the National this summer to be able to go to SGC, and obviously they had reduced their prices for the National, which then later became their prices ongoing for grading cards. So I was able to submit cards for the very first time. I submitted 20 cards across 2 orders in the very first submission that I kind of did, which kind of all were delivered at the same time. And then I submitted 25 cards later on at the November Chicago Sports Spectacular. And, I was just very pleased and enjoyed the process much more than I really ever envisioned. I prioritized trying to get cards that were going to be part of like some of my sets where I wanted the Hall of Famers graded. But then I kind of picked out some cherry picked some cards that I wanted to be able to consider getting graded. And these are just some of the highlights. I think some of the ones that really kind of stood out to me, starting obviously with the 53 Topps Yogi Berra one I picked up the previous year, that I wanted to kind of take a stab at and get graded, both to make sure that I'm looking at the right things as far as checking for authenticity, but also kind of taking a guess at what I think the grades might be at cards, so I kind of get a little bit better at it. So this was a good opportunity for me to do it. And we got Mize in the background, which is part of the 48 Bowman set that I've been trying to build this past year, which we'll talk a little bit more about too. And then obviously the Medwick, which has been part of the Diamond Star set that I've been working on for the better part of a year too. And then there's this beautiful T206 card that I picked up at a local card show at the beginning of the year, for Fred Parent. He used to play for the White Sox back in the day, I believe also the Red Sox. It's just a beautiful looking example of a T206 card that I thought was in really good condition. I thought it would grade pretty well, and I was just over the moon. It kind of came back a 3. And I'm just happy to have it in my collection. I think for me, it was kind of the highlight of all the stuff that I graded up to this point for the year. That kind of does lead me into a goal for the coming year, is to continue to kind of take the opportunity to get some of my loose cards from the 50s and 60s graded. I have some modern cards that I've also pulled out too at some point I want to put into submission, but they're obviously not going to be the first and foremost one that I'll be doing. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to kind of submitting more over the course of the year, and I know you guys enjoy these videos, and I'm looking forward to putting them out as I receive them. All right, so my 4th moment of the year is the trips that I took during the course of the year that somehow revolved around baseball or ending up at a card shop or a thrift shop of some sorts. So starting obviously in April, I was able to go to the opening home series for the St. Louis Cardinals, who ended up having a terrible season, but I was able to get this cool bobblehead along with a Yadi Molina bobblehead that were giveaways at the same game. I was there with family, due in part because I was running a half marathon there, which I also ran well, and we had the opportunity to go obviously to a baseball game while we're there, which is always a highlight when you're down in St. Louis. And I was happy to be able to also kind of come home with these lovely bobbleheads for both he and Yadi. And then, actually that wasn't the first trip of the year. We actually had a trip over the winter months where we went out to Las Vegas to visit my nephew, who's helped video things in the past, including the video that did for the National this year, which was my most viewed video of the year. We went to a card shop. We went to the awesome card shop, which had been featured on Chasing Cardboard previously. And I was able to acquire the George Kell Red Heart that you see back there in a 6, but also I was able to get this card that actually was featured on a Chasing Cardboard episode. So I took the opportunity to put one of their free stickers on the back here to remind me of that as well. And this is the 1950 Roy Campanella, which is his 2nd year Bowman card. So I'm happy to be able to kind of have that in my collection in the same purchase. And then over the course of the fall, we took a trip up to Western Michigan following my participation in the marathon down in Indianapolis. And I was able to stumble upon at this antique mall, I was able to stumble upon this Charlie Gehringer autograph card from the 61 Fleer set, actually 62 Fleer set. And, I couldn't be more thrilled. Actually, it's 61, I'm sorry, I stand corrected. With just the quality of the signature, and I was able to get it at a great price. And it's obviously a player that played for the Tigers, which is really cool because I picked it up in Michigan. So I think the stars kind of aligned that I needed to come home with that card that day, and I'm really happy that I was able to pick that up and spend time with my family and friends during the course of these great trips, and I was able to obviously acquire these great items. So That is my number 4th moment of the year, as we're now going to be breaking into the top 3 here shortly. So before I jump into our top 3 moments of the year, I wanted to kind of highlight some of my collecting goals still that are on my list, as I have a longer list there to still be able to capture. So I think we're going to kind of alternate back and forth for the next few segments here until we get to the number 1s on both lists. So for my 9th sort of goal of the year, so I wanted to be able to at some point acquire all the black parallels of the 2005 Topps White Sox cards. So this was the year, obviously, that was very important to me on many levels. I had 2 nephews that were born this year, but it was also the year I got married, but it was also the year the White Sox won the World Series. What's cool about these cards, other than just they look phenomenal with the black borders, it was that they are all numbered out of 54. So it's going to be a pretty aggressive project. Because of the scarcity of those cards, it's going to be a little bit more of a lower priority on my list. But I'm hoping to be able to kind of pick up a few during the course of the year when I have a few extra bucks here and there, trying to be able to pick up some of the key players. So that'll be kind of fun putting that together. And it'd be great once I kind of have it more or less completed. And the other goal I have that's kind of also a lower priority, just because I want the price to come down a little bit more on it, is I have been trying to get all the gold cards for Derek Jeter for the years that he was featured in the top sets where they had gold parallels. And I'm going to probably get some of the ones I have at some point graded, so I can kind of have it, all the ones that are graded for the cards that I have of him. But there's one that's been an outlier for me for many years, and that's the 2007 Topps Gold Parallel. It's the same card that features him with Mickey Mantle and George Bush in the background, but there's a gold version of that too, out of 2007, I guess it would have been that year. That is skyrocketed during the course of the pandemic as people kind of realized it was a popular card, and that was a little bit more of a scarce version of it. I'm hoping the prices will kind of come back down at a price point I'm a little more comfortable with. It's the last one I need to finish the run. So I'm hoping to, at some point, if it presents itself at the right price during the coming year, I'm probably just going to jump on it. So I'll be keeping an eye on it during the course of the year, and hopefully I might be able to kind of pick that up, but it's not one I'm prioritizing that I'd like to finish during the course of the year. So I'll just strike when the iron is hot, if you will. So those are my 8th and 9th sort of goals of the year. So we're going to kind of jump back over here real quick and pick up with, I'll pick up real quick with number 3 of the highlights of the year. So that'll be the next one. So number 3 on my list was attending the National. That was just such a wonderful experience, being able to go there with my nephew and my friends, and obviously doing a video of the event that kind of cataloged our experience going to the show. Actually, more so my nephew's experience of experiencing the show, which was kind of cool seeing it through his perspective. And again, as I mentioned before, just appreciated the positive response we got through the video from the community, most watched video by far, that I had over the course of the year. And, it just was really a lot of fun putting that all together. But more importantly, spending time with he and also my friends that were in attendance, but also meeting so many of you for the very first time out there. And kind of maintaining some of those connections there after the show has been really quite a big reward, being able to have those experiences during the past year, and I'm looking forward to many more of those coming in the future. These are some of the highlights of some of the pickups I had. I was very set focused at that time, so probably the one that's the one that was really on my target list as I coming in was the one you see right before you, which is the Al Simmons card from the Diamond Star sets. And I definitely wanted the version of him wearing a White Sox uniform, so I wanted either the 34 or the 35 for my set. Maybe at some point I'll acquire the 36 when he's with the Tigers at some point too. But then I was able to also, pick up a 53 Bowman Campy, which I haven't said this before, but he's one of my favorite players from the 50s. I just think he's got a great story. It's very inspiring. And he was a great player on top of it. And then obviously, actually the very first graded Mickey Mantle I had is part of the Giant set. And this one was a really beautiful example of that card. And I think it's kind of a little bit undergraded, in my opinion, but that kind of worked to my benefit when I was trying to work out a deal with the dealer at that point. So again, just a great experience, and I can't recommend it enough if you have the opportunity to be able to go. I won't be at this coming year's one, but I'll be looking forward to being back in 2 years when it's back here in Chicago. So that was highlight number 3 of the year, was doing that, going to the Nationals. So, all right. So jumping back to one of my hobby goals for 2024, this is the year that I wanted to be able to try and complete the 1948 Bowman set. So this is actually my very first hobby goal of the year, is to trying to be able to complete this set. I'm down to 20 cards I need for it, and 3 Hall of Famers, one of which being the Musial, so there might be a 2 Musial a year for me if I'm able to acquire this, and also the 48 Bowman. So here's a few cards I picked up during the year, as well as the card that kind of inspired it all when I got the Enos Slaughter card many years ago at this point now, probably about 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. But I picked up obviously the Feller and the Rizzuto and the Spawn rookies, as well as autographs for Feller and Spawn as well. So that is like my first one, trying to be able to kind of jump in and complete. So looking forward to doing that one. We're getting down to the last 2 moments of the year for 2023 for me and my channel. This was actually inspired by starting live streams. So without question, that has been something that has, brought a lot of enjoyment to the hobby, is being able to be asked to participate on a live stream now and then. The first one I did was actually with Alex Bowman 53, when he wanted to talk about the Diamond Star sets, and I was really excited to be able to kind of jump on there, knowing obviously a good amount about the set at that point, and meeting fellow people in the hobby that also were a fan of that set through that process. But by doing so, I was actually inspired to be able to kind of start live streams of my own. And the very first one that I did with another fellow member of the community was around the 1948 Bowman set, because I found that father-son vintage cards, and I had a shared interest and passion for being able to kind of complete that set. He has since obviously moved on to trying doing autograph cards of all the stars for that set, whereas I'm still kind of just comfortable being able to kind of acquire the cards ungraded for the set. So but I also, he was the one that kind of sent me this really great gift, which was the Sam Rice over the holidays. And some of the other sets we had the opportunity to kind of talk about were the 67 top set, as well as the 1972 top set. So I'm looking forward to doing more of those this coming year, and partnering with him and others on the channel and in the community to be able to kind of create great content, I think, that people will enjoy. So that is my number 2 moment of the year, and we'll be getting to number 1 shortly. All right, so this is my 3rd goal for the year, is trying to be able to acquire most of the remaining Hall of Famers for the 1953 Bowman sets, and some commons along the way. I would say the few exceptions that are kind of outside of there, that are not kind of on the target list this year, but will be obviously in subsequent years, would be the Mickey Mantle card, the Yogi Berra card, and probably the Pee Wee Reese card, just because there's a little bit more cost associated with them. But how exciting would it be if I could get down to maybe just those few cards? I have 95 cards of the set, which is 160 cards total. So I made quite a bit of progress on it during the course of the last year. And I'm hoping to be able to kind of get, including those other Hall of Famers that I mentioned, like to be able to kind of then get maybe down to like 25 to 30 cards period by the end of the year, since I am prioritizing some other projects too. I think that would be a great progress with the set. If I can get more than that, that's fantastic. But these are just some of the cards that I've been able to acquire during the course of this past year, and some of which I got graded myself, which would be the Monty Irvin and the Ralph Kiner, which I'm happy and pleased with the results I got in both those cards. And the other 2 were an eBay purchase, and one I picked up at the Chicago Sports Spectacular past here in November, which is this beautiful Warren Spahn. Just a great set, and I'm looking forward to be able to kind of continue to make progress on one of the most beautiful sets, period, but definitely one of the top sets of the 1950s. All right, so winding down, this actually brings me to both my final collecting goal of the year, which I ranked for the coming year, which I ranked at number 4. And also my highlights of the year, my number 1 moments. These are going to be my biggest pickups of the year by far. And, I've been working on this project for 4+ years now, so we'll go on to a 5th year. I'm down to just two cards I need for getting all the 2001 Topps Gold parallels of the stars and Hall of Famers for the set, so I'm really looking forward to trying to be able to pick up the last two that I need. They don't show up for auction very often, but I'm definitely going to jump on those when they come in, because that's all I need now. So without further ado, let me show you the biggest cards of the year that I picked up by far, starting pretty much when I got these. We'll just kind of go in chronological order versus value. The first one being the 2001, obviously, Topps traded Albert Pujols Gold Edition. It's a 6. The imperfection's actually on the back, so the front of the card is completely perfect. So I'm happy with the imperfection just being on the back because it displays extraordinarily well. No one will ever see it unless they turn over the card. So I think that works well for my set. And this is going to be a repeat of one I showed you earlier, but the one I picked up in May. Ichiro, obviously it was a big card for me to be able to kind of acquire that one. Both actually the Pujols and the Ichiro cards that I wanted in my hobby for a long time, and in my collection I was able to pick them up. And then most recently, if you've been a viewer of my channel, you've also noted that I kind of did holidays a little bit for myself this year and acquired the dual rookie card of Ichiro and Pujols that's featured in a traded set. So this is actually really the trifecta, if you will, of the gold cards for the 2001 Topps sets that have the highest value and probably the most coveted. And I'm just so pleased to have these in my collection. I fell in love with these the moment I was opening packs and pulled a couple out. And it took some time being able to kind of get really the finances to be able to pick up these three. But it's taken a lot of time just picking up some of the minor stars and even some of the minor Hall of Famers, because they just don't come to auction very often. So this has been quite a labor of love, and I'm excited to be able to kind of hopefully finish off this project this coming year by trying to be able to acquire those last two. So that's it, guys. Those were my moments of the year. I hope you all have a wonderful New Year's and a great 2024 year of participating in the hobby and collecting cards for yourselves. I'll be back soon with another video. It's time for another Diamond Star Stories, and I'm looking forward to be able to kind of put the next one together. I've been recently acquired a card that will kind of fit in with the story really well when I talk about this next player, and I'll have that out to you pretty soon. It was a pleasure putting together this video. It's been a pleasure being part of the community this past year and having so many people join the channel or take an opportunity to look at the content, comment, reach out. I hope to be able to have some of those experiences going into the next year as well. And again, a big thank you to all the viewers, people who have become my friends in the hobby, who have invited me to be on live streams or others. You guys also have a great New Year's, and thank you again for just, making this experience great, being in the hobby and being able to share it with others. So take care, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry for the length, but I hope you enjoyed the presentation format.